Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. Profound and subtle dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please generate unsurpassed bodhicitta. Now we'll continue with the essence of clear light. Today's teaching on the essence of clear light covers a synopsis of the crucial points of the meaning of the subject. This is divided into two sections. First, an explanation of the purpose of and connection to the Tantra. Second, a description of the meaning of the Tantra. One concerns the purpose, and the other concerns the meaning of the Tantra. First, an explanation of the purpose of and connection to the Tantra. First, those who are inclined to analyze what to accept and reject may wonder what the subject of the Tantra is, how it is articulated, and what the benefits are of understanding it. In response, for those who want to thoroughly investigate the connection to the purpose, it can be explained as follows. Generally, when we study any treatise, according to the tradition of the Indian Panditas, we need to have this kind of understanding. That is to say, when studying any treatise at the beginning, wise people tend to have thoughts like this. If someone is less thoughtful, they may not pay much attention to it. They may simply think, others are attending the teaching, so I'll attend too. Others are studying, so I'll study too, without really examining it. But if someone is wise, they will naturally reflect on this. If I'm going to study this treatise or this Tantra, what is the main subject? The main subject refers to its content. In other words, if I study this Tantra, what exactly is it about? The means of expression refers to the text itself, that is, what are the words and language that express it? These are the words and language that express the meaning. Then one should ask, what is the purpose of studying this treatise? These three questions are essential. Of course, one can also consider how these aspects relate to one another. Even the deeper purpose of that purpose can be included within these first three. These are known as the four factors. When we study Entering the Middle Way or other treatises, we examine the main subject and the means of expression, or we can speak of the main subject, the purpose, the ultimate purpose, and the connection. These four factors. When studying any treatise, we should first be clear about these four factors. This is very important. Some people may wonder about these three aspects. What is the subject of this Tantra? What are the means of expressing it? If we were to realize it, what would be the purpose? For example, let's take something very popular in the world today, like yoga, such as Indian yoga. What does it teach? Of course, it covers many aspects, such as practices related to channels, winds, and essential fluids, as well as samadhi and body movements. This is the subject matter it teaches. The means of expression are its words and language. Yoga teachers will give teachings using their words and language, and there are many books as well. After studying it, what is the purpose? For most people, it's probably for physical and mental health. Recently, many lamas at Larungar have been saying that yoga is very good for the body. It comes from India, and many people are watching videos about it. Today, several lamas came to see me and said, yoga is very good. I replied, actually, the generation stage and completion stage already include all of this. However, nowadays, many people are indeed quite practical. If something is helpful for their state of mind in this life or right now, they're especially willing to accept it. In the past, when I went to teach in Han regions, I would often teach about the preciousness of human life and rebirth in the Pure Land. But now it seems that when I teach about future lives, although people don't object, they don't show much interest. But if I tell them directly, this is very good for your health, it helps you lose weight, improves your sleep at night, and will make your work go more smoothly. When we talk about benefits for this present life, people become very interested. Of course, this is what people care about nowadays. But I believe that for those of you here, of course, you can't completely abandon your body and your present life. You still need to take care of them appropriately. But the most important thing is to realize the true nature of all phenomena and attain accomplishment in the future. This is the ultimate purpose that everyone should aspire to. In response, for those who want to thoroughly investigate the connection to the purpose, it can be explained as follows. The main subjects of this Tantra are the intrinsic nature mandala of the ground, the ultimate fundamental nature of phenomena, primordially awakened as great purity and evenness, the path of various methods that serve as the means for either directly or indirectly actualizing that ground, and utter purity and perfection as the mandala of the result. In fact, this Tantra has already taught the ground, the path, and the result. What is the ground? It is the ultimate nature of all phenomena, great purity, great equality, all primordially the nature of perfect Buddhahood. In terms of appearances, they may not seem like perfect Buddhahood, but in reality, whether we see pillars, vases, mountains and rivers, sentient beings or afflictions, they are all the nature of enlightenment. This is called the ground mandala. Some people say, for example, that Buddha images and the pure land should be pure mandalas, while ordinary things we see, such as stones and wood or other mundane objects, are not pure. But in terms of their nature, everything is actually pure. Some people may wonder, then why do we say that pure perception can lead to liberation, while impure perception cannot? This is related to sentient beings' perception. If sentient beings have excellent perception, even when they see very ordinary things, these can still become causes of liberation. Many great masters of the Chan tradition don't necessarily need to study sutras, treatises, or Buddha images. By hearing the sound of birds or seeing the moon, its reflection in water, flowers, or hearing sounds in an empty valley, very ordinary sounds, they can immediately awaken their awareness. This happens. However, if someone lacks good karmic capacity, even if they were to see an image of Amitabha Buddha or the actual body of a genuine spiritual teacher, not only would they fail to develop faith, they might even develop wrong views toward them. And this could become a cause for falling into the lower realms. What do we mean by ground, path, and result? The ground here refers to the ultimate nature of all phenomena. Everything is primordially equal and primordially pure, and has the nature of perfect Buddhahood. This is called the mandala of the ground. Of course, when we discuss the mandala later, the three mandalas of the ground, path, and result will all be explained very clearly. Many people may think, oh, when we speak of mandala, are you referring to the magical manifestation matrix mandala at Larungar? Actually, the magical manifestation matrix mandala at Larungar is an illustrative mandala, not a mandala of the ground. If it were the mandala of the ground, you wouldn't necessarily need to go there and circumambulate it. The wind is especially strong there. In fact, the mandala of the ground includes the essential nature of all things and phenomena. Everything can be called the ground mandala. The various methods for directly or indirectly actualizing the mandala of the ground are called the mandala of the path. Through some exceptionally profound instructions of the Great Perfection, one can directly actualize the mandala of the ground. With other methods, such as the generation stage and completion stage, one may indirectly actualize it through skillful means. This is called the mandala of the path. Finally, when one ultimately actualizes complete purity and the resultant state, the true original face of the ground mandala is directly revealed. This is called the pure resultant mandala. In short, this Tantra teaches the profound wisdom intent of mantra, where everything is subsumed within the ground, path, and result. The ground, path, and result were also explained in both general and detailed ways earlier, so I won't elaborate extensively here. In short, all the ground, path, and result, all phenomena or all dharmas contained within samsara and nirvana, along with the profound view and profound conduct of Vajrayana, all this intent is the content of this Tantra. What is taught? The main subject of this Tantra is the profound wisdom intent of ground, path, and result. If someone were to ask you, didn't you go there to attend teachings? You listen to the Magical Manifestation Matrix for 20 days. What exactly does the Magical Manifestation Matrix teach? What is its content? You can directly reply, the profound wisdom intent of mantra, where everything is subsumed within the ground, path, and result. Of course, others won't really understand what ground, path, and result mean. What you're saying is correct, but they definitely won't understand what ground, path, and result are. This is the subject matter, the content of the Magical Manifestation Matrix. How is this explained? The means of expression refers to the words and language that express it. How is this explained? These subjects are fully revealed in the 22 chapters of the Root Tantra through the combination of syllables, words, and sentences. So what language does the Magical Manifestation Matrix use to convey its teachings? It's expressed through a combination of syllables, words, and sentences that together present the teachings found in its 22 chapters. The entire root verses of the Magical Manifestation Matrix has 22 chapters. In the past, I memorized part of it, but later it seems obstacles arose, and many people who were memorizing texts encountered difficulties in the middle and didn't complete them. The Magical Manifestation Matrix is indeed quite difficult to memorize. I memorized part of it but encountered difficulties and didn't complete it. In India, there was a Khenpo Dorje whose daily recitation was the magical manifestation matrix. Every day he would recite the root verses of the magical manifestation matrix once. In the past, many great masters in the Tibetan region would also recite it regularly. Some would recite chanting the names of Manjushri, while others would recite the verses of the magical manifestation matrix. I previously compiled the verses from the 5 great treatises and the verses of the magical manifestation matrix into a recitation collection and distributed it to each Khenpo. There should be quite a few people memorizing the verses of the magical manifestation matrix. So what are the words and language that express it? The 22 chapters of the magical manifestation matrix. Who composed these 22 chapters? What is their origin? The text explains below that which embodies all immeasurable qualities, not separate from the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the Tathagatas, is the complete manifestation of the Lord of the Mandala's own wisdom appearances arising as secret Vajra words. In the self-appearing Akanishta, the retinue of disciples who are not other than the teacher himself are taught by effortlessly knowing the meaning of wisdom self-appearances. In fact, the 22 chapters of the magical manifestation matrix were not composed by any particular great master, nor were they composed by any scientist or writer. Is it something the Buddha Shakyamuni taught? No, it's not. So what is it? It is the nature inseparable from the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the Tathagatas. It encompasses all the Tathagatas of the 10 directions and 3 times, the Tathagatas of the future, past, and present throughout the 10 directions. Their body, speech, and mind are inseparable, unified in a single nature. The Lord of the Mandala refers to Samantabhadra Tathagata. We often speak of Samantabhadra Tathagata as the Dharmakaya, Vajradhara as the Sambhogakaya, and Shakyamuni Buddha as the Nirmanakaya. At this point, the Dharmakaya is actually singular in essence. Therefore, we don't speak of this Dharmakaya or that Dharmakaya. We don't say that. For example, as Nirmanakaya, there are Amitabha Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, and Ratnashikan Buddha. There are many Tathagatas. These are Nirmanakayas. And as for the Sambhogakaya, there are Tathagatas of the eastern direction, Tathagatas of the western direction, and the 5 direction Buddhas. There are also manifestations of the Sambhogakaya, but the Dharmakaya is solely Samantabhadra Tathagata. Why is this? Because what we call the Dharmakaya is actually presented to sentient beings, sometimes depicted as Samantabhadra Tathagata in union as the father and mother. These are merely symbolic representations of Samantabhadra Tathagata. In reality, what we call Samantabhadra Tathagata is free from all extremes of high and low, right and wrong. The nature of all phenomena is Samantabhadra Tathagata. If you were to try to conceptualize Samantabhadra Tathagata or Akanishta with conceptual thinking, no matter how hard you tried, you wouldn't be able to. With our conceptual thinking, we definitely can't conceive of it. With language, we definitely can't express it. But its origin is indeed Samantabhadra Tathagata. So the origin of these 22 chapters of the Tantra is the nature inseparable from the enlightened body, speech, and mind of all the Tathagatas, self-appearing from the wisdom of Samantabhadra Tathagata. Tathagatas have self-appearances and other appearances. Other appearances are what other sentient beings can perceive. Self-appearances, however, can be perceived within one's own state of realization. The display of self-appearances manifests as secret Vajra words. The magical manifestation matrix within self-appearance becomes secret Vajra words. Some of these secret Vajra words were taught by Samantabhadra Tathagata. Later on, Vajrapani revealed some of these teachings at Mount Malaya. There are also such explanations about the secret Vajra words. But here, we're mainly discussing the self-appearing language. Therefore, as you all know, we regularly recite the sole air of the doctrine Tantra. The sole air of the doctrine Tantra is actually a self-appearing text of Samantabhadra Tathagata. It wasn't composed by any particular Buddha as a sutra, nor was it composed by other bodhisattvas. Much less was it composed by worldly scholars or masters. So in Vajrayana, there are many Tantras, and the origin of self-appearance should be Samantabhadra Tathagata. Samantabhadra Tathagata in the self-appearing Akanishta Pure Land. regarding Akanishta in Longchenpa's great commentary on the magical manifestation matrix, it's explained quite clearly that there are many so-called Akanishta pure lands. But the Akanishta mentioned here is not actually fixed in location. It's not as if there's a fixed Akanishta pure land in the west, east, or south somewhere. It's not like that. Wherever a person attains accomplishment, that place of self-appearing accomplishment is called Akanishta. That's what it is. So in Akanishta, the retinue of disciples who are not other than the teacher himself are taught by effortlessly knowing the meaning of wisdom's self-appearances. For them, there is no effort whatsoever, not like us. When giving teachings, the teacher works hard, coughing while shouting hoarsely, and the listeners also need great courage, relying on their walking sticks just to come. The night before last, after class, I saw an elderly nun below. She was using a walking stick, tap, tap, on the icy, very slippery road, but she seemed to be walking quite well. Tap, tap, tap. I called out from behind, "Be careful." She said, "It's fine, no problem." I asked, "How old are you?" "Ah, I'm 78 years old." I said, "Should I help you?" "No need, no need. My body is quite healthy." This kind of behavior involves effort. When we attend teachings, people in their 70s and 80s still come. Younger people have it a bit easier, but some young people may usually not come to the teaching hall at all for regular classes. This time they might think to themselves, "I'm quite remarkable. I came here to listen for 20 days. I see many residents at Larungar whom I normally never see, but when tantric teachings are given, I get to see their faces. Perhaps the only way I'll see you all in the future is to keep enticing you with tantric teachings. I normally never see you. When I teach sutra teachings, I am teaching only in the self-appearing Pure Land, in an inseparable manner, but not at all in the other appearance realm. However, when tantric teachings are given, you manifest effortlessly in my world, in Akanishta, to a retinue inseparable from oneself. Samantabhadra Tathagata, who is inseparable from them, teaches the meaning of self-appearing wisdom through effortless realization. In fact, this kind of teaching is not done through spoken language or received through the sense faculty of hearing. It's not like that. In Samantabhadra Tathagata's wisdom, the entire magical manifestation matrix, with all its content free from the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations, is directly present in his wisdom. And in the minds of all the retinue who are inseparable from him, it is likewise directly present. This is called effortless teaching. In Vajrayana, there are many uncommon explanations. For many of you here, this may be relatively new knowledge. You may not have heard it before. This is called the self-appearing means of expression. One could say self-appearing language. This is not a conventional meaning taught according to the needs of others. This occurs only through the strength of the Buddha's blessings and the ever-increasing positive virtue by means of establishing the definitive, genuine wisdom of the Aryas, all the words of the supreme secret Tantra. This is the other appearance manifestation. In Vajrayana, we often speak of the realm of self-appearance and the realm of other appearance. The realm of self-appearance is generally the Sambhogakaya or Dharmakaya, manifesting within a retinue that is inseparable from oneself. Other appearance refers to what pure and impure beings to be tamed can see, hear, and perceive. So how does the magical manifestation matrix manifest in the world of other appearance? If it doesn't exist in self-appearance, it can't possibly exist in other appearance. For example, if there is no moon, then the moon's reflection cannot appear in water. Likewise, if there were no Dharmakaya, there could be no Rupakaya. Last year, at Peking University's Institute of Religious Studies, during the Q&A session, someone from Peking University's philosophy department asked, "The Chan tradition cultivates the Dharmakaya, while your Vajrayana cultivates the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. How do you view this statement?" I replied at that time, "I believe that the idea of cultivating only the Dharmakaya certainly doesn't exist. I'm not sure if the Chan tradition actually says this, but if it does, then the true Dharmakaya is free from the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations. The basic nature of all phenomena is called the Dharmakaya. According to Vajrayana, it is Samantabhadra Tathagata. Samantabhadra Tathagata is not a manifestation with a face and arms. If the Chan tradition were to cultivate it directly, I'm afraid that wouldn't be reasonable. Why is that? Because without the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, there can be no Dharmakaya either. Therefore, when manifesting before beings to be tamed, the Dharmakaya manifests as the Sambhogakaya, and the Sambhogakaya manifests as the Nirmanakaya. This is how it should be understood. At that time, I answered him using the ornament of clear realization or some other approach. But there is indeed such a statement in Han regions. Chan cultivates the Dharmakaya, while Vajrayana cultivates the three kayas. In fact, if Vajrayana were truly to cultivate something, it would perhaps be cultivating the original face of the Dharmakaya, Samantabhadra, directly. In Vajrayana, especially the Great Perfection, we could say it directly cultivates the Dharmakaya, but the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya cannot be separated. So this is how it is in self-appearance. In other appearance, through the blessings of the Buddhas and the ever-increasing positive virtue of the disciples to be tamed, what is taught is not the conventional meaning of certain individual sutra teachings that temporarily guide sentient beings. Rather, it is ultimately definitive. Moreover, it represents the true wisdom of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It is entirely the enlightened state of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is established directly through realization, not through ordinary conceptual thinking. This exalted secret meaning of the Tantra is called the other appearance Tantra meaning. How does this manifest in this world? The Tantra meaning that is directly present in the wisdom inseparable from Samantabhadra were revealed through Shakyamuni Buddha's blessings when the spiritual capacities of sentient beings in this Saha world had matured. Then at Mount Malaya, Vajrapani transmitted them to the 5 great masters. When he taught it, secret Tantra will appear to the mind through the general aspect of sound. That is the Tantra, appearing as sound. Before sentient beings, whether the teacher or the students, the meaning of the 22 chapters of the Tantra we just discussed appears in the minds of the teacher or students. This is called the Tantra appearing as sound. As I mentioned yesterday, it has both the language is explained and applied. Does it have the language that is explained? Yes, it does. Why? Because whether in the mind of the listener or the teacher, the general appearance will be present. If this is the case, then it has explanation. The language is explained is there. And if great masters of the past have called it this way, then the language is applied is also there. It has both. The language is explained and applied. Right now, I'm teaching that the magical manifestation matrix is the essence of ground, path, and result, or teachings proclaimed by Samantabhadra. When later noble ones teach this, if your minds as listeners are relatively focused, a general image will continuously arise in your minds. This is called the Tantra appearing as sound. As I teach, this also continuously resonates in my mind. This is also called the Tantra appearing as sound. Congruent with that, through the impulse to be expressive, winds are set in motion, inciting the source and movement of sound. Expressing this through speech is the Tantra heard as sound. As I mentioned yesterday, because there is such an image in the mind, conceptual thought arises from this as a cause. For example, I think, I now understand the meaning of this Tantra and should express it. In this way, through winds, vital energy, and conceptual thought, certain conditions come together. This stimulates various parts of the body, including the lips, tongue, and throat. When all these conditions and actions are complete, words about the Tantra come forth from the mouth. Words about the ground, path, and result discussed in the Tantra. These words are called the Tantra heard as sound. They can also be heard by the ears. So the Tantra heard as sound has both the language is explained and applied. Both of these are present. Why? Because it has a sound. What comes from my mouth has a sound. This sound can be received by your ears. Therefore, it's called the Tantra heard as sound. That which has become characteristic of, or the support of this expression, is outwardly arranged in the form of syllables that comprise the volumes of the Tantra of symbolic indication. This is the symbolic Tantra. We can also call it the textual Tantra, because what I say orally or what I express mentally manifests externally in written form. In Chinese, each of you now is holding the hardcover Essence of Clear Light, a general explanation of the magical manifestation matrix. And in Tibetan, there's also the Tibetan version of Essence of Clear Light. This is called the Tantra of symbolic indication. Some people don't need the physical text. They already have the magical manifestation matrix in their minds. They can recite everything from memory. This is called the Tantra appearing as sound. Some people just listen without looking at the text. They're just waiting, not reading at all, not knowing where we are in the teaching. But for some people, they hold the text in their hands. This is called the Tantra of symbolic indication. In fact, the written text is truly important. In the past, many great masters in the Tibetan region spent tremendous human and financial resources to obtain the magical manifestation matrix Tantra and its commentaries, and to request such teachings. In the past, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche would transmit this every year. When we first arrived at Larungar, every spring at Dzogchen Monastery, the place where many masters studied in the past, there was this tradition that they would spend 10 days each year teaching the root verses of the magical manifestation matrix. Not much could actually be taught. It was basically like transmitting the oral transmission. But later, this practice seems to have stopped. During my first year or two here, it happened every year. There was a very simple commentary composed by a Khenpo named Yanga. His Holiness would transmit it based on that. This connection to the meaning in the manner of root cause, contributing circumstance and result, such as the subject, the narrative context, and so forth, is fully clarified through the expression of the interrelated continuum of the sound of names, words, and syllables. Therefore, below we'll discuss the narrative context, the root cause, and the contributing circumstance, which refers to the originating circumstances of the teachings, and the result of the Tantra, which discusses the 11 topics of the Tantra. These meanings are all connected in the manner of root cause, contributing circumstance, and result. These meanings will be covered in 3 major sections below. These 3 major sections are the root cause, the contributing circumstance, and the result. These meanings are presented from 3 different perspectives. These meanings are continuously linked through syllables, words, sentences, and linguistic connections, and are perfectly revealed. This is what we call Tantra. The true content of Tantra is ground, path, and result, or we could say the root cause, the contributing circumstance, and the result. These 3 meanings. Simply put, they are linguistic expressions, language and text that are linked together continuously. This is what we call Tantra. So yesterday I explained that the word Tantra actually refers to a skillful method that enables people to attain both common and supreme accomplishments. What is it? It's visualizing the deity, reciting mantras, practicing samadhi, and so forth. The sentences and meanings of this skillful method are all called Tantra. This was also explained here. This root Tantra presents these 3 major contents linked through language and text. This is what we call Tantra. The above explains the means of expression. Everyone should understand that the meaning of the magical manifestation matrix is ground, path, and result. What are its words and sentences? The root verses of the magical manifestation matrix comprise 22 chapters. Who composed this? It was composed by Samantabhadra in self-appearance. In other appearance, through the spiritual capacities of sentient beings and the blessings of the Buddhas, the wisdom of Samantabhadra's mind-to-mind transmission has manifested before beings to be tamed and been transformed into this linguistic expression. It's not like some worldly authors who spend all their time on the internet taking material from online sources and slightly modifying it to make it their own and become an author themselves. They might even win awards and publish officially. After official publication, they consider themselves the author of this book. But actually, this book is pieced together from many different sources. Samantabhadra would certainly never plagiarize others' views. The text of the Tantra is like this. We can also say the means of expression is like this. Below, it explains what the purpose is. The purpose is that the intrinsic nature of the indicated meaning of these three tantras of the ground, path, and result is internalized through the indication of the expression of the tantra of syllables. The meaning of ground, path, and result as what is taught is understood through language and text. This is the purpose. Why are all of you studying the magical manifestation matrix today? You certainly want to understand its meaning through the text. The content expressed by the text is that all phenomena are primordially pure. This is the content of ground, path, and result. If I can understand this, then the purpose has been achieved. The purpose of your requesting the teachings has been fulfilled. If you only listen but don't understand anything at all, then the purpose has not been fully actualized. There should, however, be some hidden benefits. So how is the purpose achieved? Once the mind acknowledges a general meaning of the combination of sounds and meanings, by fixation upon this as independently existing, the symbolic unites with its referent, establishing a mental label. Such is the nature of all words. And in fact, some expressions in Vajrayana differ slightly from worldly language. Originally, the Tibetan Kangyur and Tengyur are easy to understand and accessible. But when expressing the Tantra's meaning through such textual methods, there's no other way. When the sounds and meanings are combined together, this is called a general meaning. As you all know, take the example of a vase, the general concept of vase and the particular object of direct perception. These merge together and arise as one in our mind. When the general concept, objects of inference, arises in the mind, we grasp it as a particular instance and approach it accordingly. Finally, through language, we understand its meaning. We establish a mental label. This is, generally speaking, the nature of all words and sentences, the principle of all words and sentences. When we study Buddhist logic, it's also like this. Through concepts, we understand vase. The particular instance of a vase is sought through a concept and ultimately obtained. Of course, here, through the language and text of the 22 chapters, what do we obtain? Language and text are actually a kind of meaning universal, conceptual object. Through this meaning universal, we seek ground, path, and result, free from the four extremes and 8 elaborations, or the primordially pure and equal nature of perfect Buddhahood. When we gain realization or understanding, this is the true purpose. So is it necessary for us to study such language and text? It's very necessary, although it is a kind of grasping, a kind of conceptual elaboration. When we teach the Prajnaparamita, we speak of verbal Prajnaparamita, essential Prajnaparamita, path Prajnaparamita, and resultant Prajnaparamita. We discuss many types of Prajnaparamita. Similarly, with the secret essence Tantra, some refer to verbal secrets, verbal Tantra, while others refer to the true primordial Tantra mandala. Through the verbal Tantra, we come to know the true ground, path, and result Tantra. Independence upon realizing the meaning of this subject, both the common and supreme siddhis will be fully actualized. This is the absolute purpose. What is the absolute purpose? Through such texts, understanding its content, one actualizes supreme and common siddhis. Supreme siddhi generally refers to what masters like Minling Terchen and others have said. Attaining the level of a first Bhumi Bodhisattva and above is called supreme siddhi. Common siddhis are attaining the divine ear, divine eye, and other 8 great siddhis, 10 types of siddhis, and so forth, common siddhis. What worldly people pursue is called common accomplishment. This is the most absolute purpose. Through such study, some people truly recognize the primordial nature of their minds. This is also a kind of siddhi. Of course, reaching the level of a first Bhumi Bodhisattva and above is called supreme siddhi. The most absolute supreme siddhi is attaining Buddhahood. This is called the absolute purpose. There is purpose and the absolute purpose. Thus, the absolute purpose depends upon the purpose. The absolute purpose is actualizing supreme and common siddhis, as just mentioned. It depends on understanding the meaning of the Tantra, this purpose. And the purpose depends upon comprehension of the subject matter. The purpose refers to understanding its meaning. This must depend on the content of ground, path, and result that is taught. Since realizing the meaning depends upon the expression, except for extremely rare individuals, there is no other way without depending on textual expression. Therefore, studying textual expression is very important. Here there are the subject and the expression, the object to comprehend and comprehension. Through language and text, we understand the content. So the relationship between these two is that the subject and the expression, the object to comprehend and comprehension. Comprehension is the language and text. The object to comprehend refers to the content. The purpose and the expression, the method, and that which originates from the method. The expression refers to language and text, and the purpose is understanding its content. The relationship between these two is method and that which is produced by the method. In entering the middle way, it explains that ultimate truth and conventional truth are method and that which is produced by the method. We realize ultimate truth through conventional truth. Through the text of the Tantra, we understand the content of the Tantra. So the relationship between these two is method and that which is produced by the method, and the purpose and the absolute purpose, each of which emerges from its causal relationship. The absolute purpose is ultimately attaining siddhi. The purpose is temporarily understanding the meaning of the Tantra. The relationship between these two is each of which emerges from its causal relationship. By realizing the purpose, understanding the Tantra's meaning, one can then attain the common and supreme siddhis. Ultimately, the connection between both the absolute purpose and the subject establishes their unique relationship. Because the absolute purpose is realizing the final result, so there must be the content. If it weren't there, there would be no way to realize it. The relationship between them is essential identity. They are of one essence. Therefore, it must be understood that this is the Tantra that serves the purpose of effortlessly accomplishing both temporary and ultimate aims. Studying this treatise is therefore very important. All benefits in this life and all ultimate benefits can be accomplished. Both self-benefit and benefit for others can be accomplished. As stated in the scriptures, this comes about through the strength of extraordinary accumulations of merit from previous lifetimes, and that is why such great benefit is derived from just hearing the sound of this Tantra or seeing the scripture, regardless of whether the genuine meaning is actually realized. This point is very important. According to the teachings found in various tantras and treatises, realizing the content of the Tantra is of course best, but even if you don't realize its content, if you simply hear the sound, why do so many people travel from afar to come to the Tibetan region in the middle of winter to attend tantric teachings? Some people wait and wait. When it's time to attend sutra teachings, they don't want to go to class, making excuses like, I'm sick, my mental state isn't right, I don't feel well, giving many reasons. But when tantric teachings begin, everything is suddenly normal. Their health has recovered and they come out. Moreover, they look healthy, not at all like someone who was ill. Why do so many people attend tantric teachings? They consider it liberation through hearing. Indeed, tantric teachings differ from other teachings. This isn't self-praise about how profound tantric teachings are. Through many years of study, the more I study, the more I realize it's extraordinary, not just from history or other perspectives, but also through my own study and reflection. No philosophical system, whether Madhyamaka, Yogacara, or any other, can refute it. Moreover, it's so direct. When tantric teachings explain something, suddenly you have a breakthrough. It's so straightforward. For some fundamental questions, it introduces them to you directly. Both in theory and in pith instructions, it goes straight to the point. I believe that in Vajrayana, there truly is liberation through hearing, liberation through seeing, liberation through touch. Indeed, nowadays in the Tibetan region, Vajrayana is very widespread. One could say that sometimes it's perhaps too widespread. Some tantric teachings aren't kept secret at all. They're taught casually, but that doesn't necessarily lead to accomplishment. However, if one truly values them deeply and practices with great care, as you all know, in this degenerate age in the Tibetan region, whether Han Chinese or Tibetan people who have practiced many tantric teachings at the time of death display so many auspicious signs, there are also so many practitioners practicing it in their daily lives. The other day during the Amitabha Dharma assembly, there were so many people participating. This is also a sign that Vajrayana is flourishing. If Vajrayana weren't flourishing, then some people might think, oh, it's just an Amitabha Dharma assembly. Actually, the empowerments within the Amitabha Dharma assembly are combined with tantric practice methods. Lerab Lingpa's swift path to the Pure Land practice is entirely a generation stage practice of Vajrayana. So in the Tibetan region, whether we're talking about the transmission lineage of Vajrayana or Vajrayana as a whole, from ancient times until now it has never declined. It's been preserved intact and complete in this world. The pith instructions, the texts, all the transmissions, everything is very complete. Therefore, at the present time, just as when Buddhism was very flourishing in India, many Tibetan Panditas also went there to study and attained high realizations, then returned to Tibetan region to spread the Dharma. So we should know that Vajrayana is liberation through hearing and liberation through seeing. Even if you don't fully comprehend it, keep the text of the magical manifestation matrix with you regularly. In 1996, when we taught it, some of the Dharma texts from back then, I see certain practitioners are still reading them every day. Last year I saw a Dharma teacher who has preserved the magical manifestation matrix very, very well. Moreover, the bottom of basically every page has become worn from use. Constantly reading it every day for over 10 years, day in and day out. This kind of faith is truly praiseworthy. It also brings excellent merit and benefit. This is not just a casual circumstance or chance encounter in this life. It's not like that. Our encounter with Vajrayana may appear on the surface to be chance. The other day when I went to the Chinese University of Hong Kong, the dean of their School of Arts said, "So many university students from mainland China coming here may seem to be a chance opportunity on the surface, but actually it's not chance at all. There must be a very special connection." I think the same is true for all of you. It may appear casual on the surface, having completed the preliminary practices and immediately entered Vajrayana, wearing a badge around your neck to attend tantric teachings, seemingly by chance. But actually, as omniscient Mipham Rinpoche and Longchenpa has said in the Beacon of Certainty and many other excellent treatises, it's also explained that this comes from the power of having accumulated excellent merit in the past. Only because of that can we encounter such excellent tantric teachings in this very life. A description of the meaning of the Tantra. This has 4 aspects: body Vajra, speech Vajra, mind Vajra, and wisdom Vajra. Everyone knows body, speech, and mind, the Buddha's body, speech, and wisdom. The last one, wisdom, is actually the inseparability of body, speech, and mind. It's called wisdom Vajra. This is common in Vajrayana. When we teach the 4 empowerments, there are also body, speech, and mind. Finally, we dispel the obscurations to the equality of the 3 doors. The so-called obscurations to the equality of the 3 doors. First, body, speech, and mind are separate. Finally, the aspect where body, speech, and mind are inseparable is called the 4th Vajra, also called Wisdom Vajra. It's divided into 4 Vajras. First, the narrative context, the root cause. Second, bringing forth the subject, the contributing circumstance. Third, the meaning of the Tantra, the result. Fourth, the entire entrustment, the conclusion. This Tantra is so excellent that it is entrusted to the Dharma protectors and destined disciples. First, the narrative context, the root cause. What is the origin of this Tantra? Through what circumstances did it come about? First, its root cause. What is the direct source? For example, where did the Diamond Sutra originally come from? This root cause needs to be explained here. Of course, we touched on this briefly before, but what's its source in the human realm? Or to put it another way, what's the source in the realm of sentient beings? It's explained through the 5 perfectly endowed circumstances. From the perspective of this great Tantra, it is necessary to give an uncommon explanation. The Sutra approach definitely won't work. There are still certain differences between the Sutra 5 perfectly endowed circumstances and Tantric ones. Therefore, explaining through the 5 perfectly endowed circumstances. First is perfection of the teacher. The teacher is the glorious Kuntuzangpo, sovereign of the Vajra body, speech and mind of all the Sugatas of the 10 directions and 4 times. Here, the assertion is that the nature of phenomena is primordially awakened as the teacher. Actually, Samantabhadra is all the Tathagatas of the 10 directions and 4 times. The 3 worldly times, future, past, and present, and the ultimate time of primordial purity, these are called the 4 times, because the first 3 times are conventional times. Future, past, and present are conventional times. The essence of future, past, and present time is completely non-existent. The aspect of essential purity is called the time of primordial purity. This also belongs to the category of space-time, so we call this the sovereign of the Vajra body, speech and mind of all the Tathagatas of the 10 directions and 4 times, inseparable from the nature of all phenomena, primordially and truly awakened. This is what we accept as the teacher, Kuntuzangpo. There are many aspects of Kuntuzangpo, including in the Treasury of Dharmadhatu and other treatises. You'll find discussions of Kuntuzangpo. There's intrinsic Kuntuzangpo, resultant Kuntuzangpo, ground Kuntuzangpo, many different explanations. But here we're referring to the teacher Kuntuzangpo. Rather than that the mind of a single individual practicing on the path becomes a temporary Rupakaya teacher who awakens as an embodiment of the wisdom mind. This Kuntuzangpo is explained at the level that's inseparable from the nature of all phenomena. This Vajra sovereign is inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of all Tathagatas throughout the 10 directions. We need to understand that within the Dharmadhatu, all Tathagatas of the 10 directions share one essential nature. This is essential to understand. If we don't accept this, then Amitabha Buddha would just be some person living in the West. Shakyamuni Buddha would be someone in the center, and Akshobhya Buddha would be someone in the East. The three of them would be like having their own families with a few retinue members. But that's only how it appears within our conceptual thinking. This is merely how things appear before sentient beings. In reality, it's absolutely impossible for things to exist that way. If it were truly like that, the view that Tathagatas are of one essence within the Dharma nature would be impossible to explain. The idea of 3 separate Tathagatas in the ultimate sense would be completely untenable. In that case, it wouldn't accord with true reality. Actually, the Dharma nature inseparable from the essence of the Buddhas of the 3 times is called Tathagata. It's not like Prince Vesantara, who at first appeared as an ordinary person, then through practicing the path finally attained realization, and with the form body manifesting from his wisdom, truly taught the Dharma in the world, like Shakyamuni Buddha and Amitabha Buddha teaching through their physical forms. It's not like that. So the first perfection of the teacher in ordinary conceptual thinking, truly manifesting these 5 perfections, is quite difficult. You also shouldn't try too hard to visualize it, or you might end up with a headache. This is the perfection of the teacher. Yesterday I burned coal and got a bit of a headache. It wasn't from contemplating the perfection of the teacher, just giving you a reminder. Perfection of place is akanishta. As I just explained, akanishta. Wherever someone attains Buddhahood, the Dharmadhatu there is called akanishta. In the past, a disciple asked Patrul Rinpoche whether the akanishta of the Pure Land of Bliss and the akanishta mentioned in Vajrayana are the same. Patrul Rinpoche didn't answer directly. He said, "How could you ask such a question?" Of course, what Patrul Rinpoche meant was that actually the akanishta of the Pure Land doesn't have a fixed time or a fixed place. It's impossible. If it were truly like that, Amitabha would be a Buddha with truly existent bodhisattva appearing below him. In Vajrayana's akanishta, this isn't accepted at all. The principal deity and retinue are all emanations of wisdom. There are no ordinary beings or bodhisattvas with self-characteristics. Apart from the principal deity, there are no sentient beings with their own mind streams. According to Longchenpa, they don't exist. Minling Turchen has other explanations, but I won't elaborate on those here. The Akanishta Pure Land Palace of the space of the Dharmadhatu, free from center or limit. When we practice, we often speak of the palace of the Dharmadhatu. Don't think it's truly like a temple hall. Actually, it has no center and no edge. If there's no center and no edge, how could it be like a temple hall? Phenomena are self-appearing as the mandala of the essence of awakening, without boundary and without the bias of a pure or impure land based on conflicting directions. It's not like the Saha world being impure while the Pure Land is pure. It's not like the Saha world being impure while the Pure Land is pure. Whether we call it Akanishta or Kuntuzangpo, in essence they are inseparable. This is called perfection of place. Perfection of retinue is the manifestation of the great wisdom of self-appearances, and as such it is asserted that the retinue is not other than the mind stream of the teacher himself. who embodies the state of great awakening in which the intrinsic natures of tainted and taintless phenomena are inseparable. This is the perfection of retinue. Actually, they are emanations of Kuntuzangpo's self-appearing great wisdom. All contaminated and uncontaminated phenomena are completely inseparable. They are inseparable from all teachers who embody the state of great enlightenment. Kuntuzangpo, or 5 Buddha families, the 42 peaceful deities, and so on, all are inseparable. This is not akin to individuals gathering through devotion, nor is it based on their having purified their mind streams. It's not like other situations where, apart from the principal deity, there are bodhisattvas with pure mind streams, such as first Bhumi Bodhisattvas, second Bhumi Bodhisattvas, arhats, and some faithful ordinary beings all gathered together. It's not like that at all. All the retinue are inseparable from Kuntuzangpo's self-appearance. When we usually speak of the 5 perfections, everyone knows. For example, when Shakyamuni Buddha taught the Diamond Sutra, or when he taught the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha was one who was supremely pure, having attained the highest realization. Bodhisattvas were in the middle with a pure state. Below were many ordinary people. Perfection of Buddha was Shakyamuni Buddha. Perfection of retinue were the bodhisattvas, monks, nuns, and so on. Perfection of place was at Vulture Peak or in the Deer Park, explained like this. In general, when the sutra tradition explains the 5 perfections, they're relatively fixed. But when the 5 perfections are explained in tantric teachings, it's not like this. So there are many differences here. Everyone must understand this. Perfection of time, within the 4th time of the basic space of evenness, free from transition and change. The effortless, inexhaustible, ornamental wheel of enlightened body, speech, and mind abides as the ornament of the spontaneous rich array. The 4 times are already equal free from transition and change. Moreover, the inexhaustible ornamental wheels of body, speech, and mind of the Tathagatas of the 10 directions and 3 times all abide as the ornament of the spontaneous rich array, inseparable from the Tathagata essence. This is unlike the distinctions of ordinary time, such as past, present, future, seconds, moments, and so forth, which are ephemeral fractions of time. Our current ordinary time, past, present, instants or moments or days, months, years, divided like this. This is ordinary time. It's not that kind of time. Continuum refers to perfection of Tantra or perfection of teaching. The Tantra reveals that the phenomena of samsara and enlightenment are primordially, inseparably awakened as the intrinsic nature of great purity and evenness. Here, it is not taught that by relying upon Buddha families, teachers, causes, results, accepting, rejecting, and accomplishing the causes for enlightenment, the result will come about at a future time. Perfection of teaching means teaching that all phenomena are primordially the nature of purity and evenness, perfect Buddhahood. It is not through practicing the 4 noble truths, suffering, origin, cessation, and path, then relying on spiritual teachers, and finally obtaining realization through causes and effects. These are all provisional teachings of the sutra tradition. In Vajrayana, wisdom and obscurations have a dispeller-dispelled relationship. This is explained in the finding comfort and ease in the nature of mind. We've covered many of these unique Vajrayana features before. We have explained the 5 perfections. These are completely different from the 5 perfections in the sutra tradition. This is a really important point to understand. These points are also understood through the synthesized words of the narrative context that state when this was taught. The 5 perfections at the beginning of the verses of the magical manifestation matrix, there's a phrase called when this was taught. It's like the opening, thus have I heard, at one time, that you find at the beginning of sutra scriptures. In Vajrayana texts, they typically open with when this was taught. From this phrase alone, you can understand the points. Given that the wisdom intent of teacher and retinue are inseparable, it says, when this was taught. Just now, the teacher and retinue, Kuntuzangpo and the retinue, are inseparable. You can tell this from the phrase, this was taught. There is a significant difference between saying when, mentioned here, and saying at one time, which is not mentioned here. In Vajrayana, we speak of the 4 perfections of time. The sutra tradition says at one time, referring to a specific fixed moment. Here it says when, which actually means the timeless moment of primordial purity. beyond any temporal distinctions. It also has special significance. This explanation of the synthesized meaning of the narrative context must also convey the nature of the narrative context of the outer Tantra's origin. This is the method of the 5 perfections just explained. This is outer Tantra, explained in accordance with the narrative context. The inner arrangement of the bodhicitta. There's also another explanation, inner Tantra, explained in accordance with bodhicitta. Your own bodhicitta as the principal deity, other minds as the perfection of retinue, and so forth. These can also be explained in terms of the 5 perfections, and the secret wisdom of clear light, luminous wisdom as the principal deity, the 5 wisdoms as its retinue, and so on, another type of explanation. Actually, Longchenpa's great commentary explains it quite clearly. The extensive explanation about the manner in which this is fully endowed can be understood, beginning with the way the spontaneously present, intrinsic nature mandala of the ground arises from within compassion, and how from that the peaceful and wrathful mandalas manifest. This will also be taught below. The true detailed principles of the 5 perfections can also be known from elsewhere. The extensive explanation can be known through the detailed commentaries that illuminate the words and meaning of the Vajra Tantra. In Longchenpa's commentary on the Guhyagarbha Tantra, there's a detailed explanation you can refer to. Good, that's all for today. Let's dedicate the merit.
Bandharangara Badma Sodargye Bandharangara Badma Sodargye Bandharangara Badma Sodargye